Can you hear me well? Fantastic. My name is Borislav, and I'm a decision architect. I help different companies achieve DevOps sort of goals. And today I'm going to talk about a tool that has become quite ubiquitous in these type of processes, and that is Docker. I'm going to share some observations I've made working with various sized companies doing different types of businesses in the past 5 years that I think are quite useful and a lot of people relate to. Um, Docker has a lot of potential, and I'm not gonna give you the usual hype talk. You can do a lot of things with it. It's what it says on the tin can. It gives you great abstraction, and a lot of big major players are behind it, investing a lot of monies. So you can make sure that the code quality of it is quite high. It has a lot of potential when it comes down to improving onboarding time, increasing your code quality, and reducing maintenance costs. And some people might even try to convince you that you can reap some revenue benefits, but it depends on how much you're willing to trust those people. And I think that the big one here is onboarding time and the gains that you get from people who can come in and start contributing immediately should be quite obvious to everyone. I've seen through my own experience how people go from speaking when it comes down to onboarding time in terms of days to hours. You can have your first pull request as a matter of 3 days being into the company. And the reason is, at your disposal, you have a small testing laboratory. You can, with a single command, start any database, and it's up and running in 3 minutes. You can start the second one on a different port with a different version from whatever vendor. And on top of all of this comes at virtually no cost. With so much money and a lot of thought being put into that tool, it is all controlled through declarative syntax. It's very easy to master. You can go from novice to someone who understands the technology incredibly well and can put together these complex experiments to work with. Imagine that you are going in your digital transformation, and all of a sudden you have this Kafka cluster that you have to use. You're talking about reactive systems. You have all of these events flying around. It's overwhelming. Like, these systems that we have to work with are not gonna become any simpler anytime soon. And having something that can allow you to spin up this environment in 1 minute in a very simple, understandable human language is quite powerful, in my opinion. And as I've said, I've seen people walk in, and 3 days later, they're already contributing in a meaningful way. And of course, when you have this much flexibility at your hand, it becomes very easy to start creating your local environments using that tool and sharing it across and with all of your teammates. It gives you the option to scrutinize it because it becomes part of your pipeline, part of your code base. Taking it to the next step is only natural. I mean, let's face it, with these complex systems, relying on mocked repository just doesn't cut the mustard. You need something that can catch some of the errors that I'm sure we all have seen. You look at this query, it's perfectly fine, you deploy to testing, and you find out that it's slow as hell. If you have something already there that you can start your local environment with, it just has to be the next natural step. Move on to acceptance testing that actually is black box testing. You're testing your system with the actual components right there. You have the real thing. It's your database. You can catch these errors that otherwise you're not going to be able to. Like that kind of concurrency ones that we have with all of these systems, it's not uncommon to have processes that involve 5 or more network calls. How many things can go wrong in that? And sure enough, having the cloud at our disposal has given us a lot of flexibility, but it has shifted the problem from one place to another. Right now, network is the enemy. It's first-class citizen, and it's very, very predictable. You know that it's going to be unpredictable. So being able, again, to repeat myself, to spin up something that you can actually test with is invaluable. And over time, all of your software obviously becomes much more, the quality increases. You don't have to spend so much attention on these things, and it's a one-time, it's something you do once. Once everyone gets in the habit of using it when they're testing, it actually makes things go quicker. Because the concern people most often mention is, well, these tests are slow. So what? I tell them, so what? It gives you time to think more. Let that test run, let it verify, and while it's verifying, you know what? You can spend some time documenting the interfaces you've just worked on. Do something more fruitful with your time while you went on that process to finish. And let's face it, hardware these days is incredibly quick. We are not talking anymore about minutes. These things happen in seconds. You can fit an entire database in your RAM. Like, how powerful is everyone's laptop these days? It's something that I've seen work with different sized organizations. It cuts a lot of the time that they spend having to deal with common issues. The ecosystem that surrounds Docker is incredibly rich and vibrant. The tools at our disposal literally make these changes trivial. Going from having a local environment that you can start your test bases, where you can run all of your acceptance tests against, turns your acceptance tests into something that you know you can depend on. And if I had to pick one thing that I learned from the amazing Dr. Anita Sengupta last year when she gave the keynote was, NASA had relied to send the Mars rover by just using black box tests, because it was cheaper for them. And I think, if it's worked from NASA, taking that approach, I think that can work for every one of us. And there are these huge companies behind it. They are not going away anytime soon. They are investing more and more money into making these products much more easy to integrate in any environment. And I don't need to tell you how many products out there are already fully integrated with Docker. Like, even just using it to run your tests, just for that purpose, you see how much it changes the way people think about the software that they are working on. And there's no lock-in. It's easy to sell to the business people. It makes creating the prototypes that we have to work with something that it becomes a very rapid process. You get feedback relatively quickly because it's quite trivial to package it and use one of these existing integration points to put it out there somewhere so the business people can see how it's progressing at any time. You would be surprised how many concurrency issues you can discover this way, or misunderstandings when you are talking about something, how the different groups interpret the thing you're discussing. A good example might be, you all know that you have to have these retries because we are so communicated. Everything happens over the network. How many of your business people know? And it has business impact. Latency has business impact. Amazon have reported 1% loss in revenue just due to latency. I think that these systems require that we're now developing. The systems of the future require a slightly different approach, one that takes in account that infrastructure is a significant portion of what we do. Everything is data-driven. And databases are an incredibly complex engines. Thank you.